Breast cancer is the commonest type of cancer affecting females, and it represents 25% of all cancers affecting women. In Nigeria, 26,130 new cases of breast cancer were recorded in Nigeria. Today, I'll be having a chat with Stephanie Nyong, the founder of Health Platforms, to talk more about this. Stephanie is a health educator who has carved a niche for herself in sexual and reproductive health. She has written a couple of books, including one on breast cancer awareness, and she has also reached out to hundreds of schoolgirls, talking to them about sexual and reproductive health. Please welcome with me, Stephanie Nyong.
Oh, you've said quite a bit. So I'm Stephanie Nyong. I'm a health educator and MD here at Health Platforms International. So Health Platforms is an organization that reaches out to women and girls, giving them comprehensive quality, health education and preventive healthcare services. So simply put, prevention is what we do here and educate people to be in charge of their health, to be able to know what to do in order to stay free from these diseases.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we are talking today about breast cancer, and we just like you to explain in a layman's word what exactly is breast cancer and what are the causes.
So breast cancer, simply put, is cancer in the breast. Now this is an abnormal growth of cells in the breast tissues. And what is the cause really? No one can practically say this is the cause, but there are risk factors, So questions you want to ask yourself: am I at risk? Using these questions. Do you have a first relative, a sister or an aunt, or your mother, or grandmother who had this disease? Then you're at a higher risk, of having this disease. Of course, alcohol, overweight, just normal risk factors which you have with other diseases as well can also, increase your risk of breast cancer.
Okay, so as I understand that men also, they are at risk of getting breast cancer. So what are some of the warning signs that we should look out for, and at what point do you think we should see a doctor?
You talked about men also having breast cancer. Yes, men can have breast cancer. While this may come as a surprise to many people, it actually happens. But you'd also want to note that it's just 1% of all these breast cancers actually happen to men. So you have more of these cancers happening, in women. And then what are the warning signs? You have signs, obviously, a lump in the breast that wasn't there before. So some people have what you call fibrocystic breasts. Now they have lumps in their breasts are usually lumpy, around the time in the menstrual cycle, and it usually goes away. Now that's not the kind of lumps we're talking about. We're talking about lumps that has been there for a while, lumps that are growing. So these are signs you should look out for. Lumps is the most common sign that women have reported. And then you have difference in the size of the breasts. So do you have one breast slightly, not slightly, rather bigger, visibly bigger? Now some people will say the right breast is bigger than the left breast, or the left breast is bigger than the right breast. I don't know, if that is true, but we're looking for a really visible change. Like you have one breast left and then the other breast that's a visible change. You should look out for that. You should also look for nipple inversions, in the sense that, for example, as a lady, you've always had your nipple pointing outwards, and then all of a sudden it's going in. Now some people have naturally, inverted nipples. That's not a problem. But if yours has always been out and then it's beginning to go in, you should, report these signs early enough to the doctor. You also have skin changes. You have colors and patches on the skin. When things that have not been there, before, and then all of a sudden you start noticing these changes, you should report these signs early enough to the doctor. Now, talking about skin changes, sometimes you have them say dimpling. You hear people say dimpling. Now, dimpling is like the back of an orange. The way it has those little dots around it. Okay. Yes, that's dimpling. Now, if your skin is beginning to have that kind of texture, then you'd want to report these signs, early enough. So those are the warning signs.
Okay, this
look out
for the skin, is it the skin around the breast or just any part of the body?
The skin around the breast. Okay. The skin around the breast.
Okay.
Yeah.
As for instance, as a female, if you keep checking yourself frequently, say every month, or maybe it's even become a regular practice, you still need to go to the clinic for a clinical breast examination. So
it would be wise for you to go to the clinic first and have a nurse, or a health practitioner show you how to. Now, there are simple rules. Some people, you ask them, do you examine your breast? And they're like, oh, I examine your breast. And then you ask them, how do you do it? And then you see people doing this or doing that. No, that is not how to examine the breast. So you use just the pads of your inner fingers, and it follows a regular pattern. So I'm just saying this so people can also know how to do it right before I then answer your question. So you imagine your breast as a clock, with 4 quadrants. You start from one end, you move in a circular motion, you finish that gently and take your time. Actually, I like to call it me and my breast moment. So you don't need to rush. You take off your bra and look in the mirror. You do that. When you finish that, you go to your armpit area, because around your armpit area you have what you call lymph nodes. And if there's something going on around your breast, like an infection for example, it swells. So you'd want to check your armpit area, your breast, and then you want to press your nipples as well for unusual kind of discharge, coming out, especially if it's bloody. Then you want to report this sign. So that's one part of the breast examination. So when you say breast examination, you have look and you have feel. So you stand in front of the mirror, you look for all those warning signs I talked about, just in case you have any of them. You put your hands at the back of your head, turn and look around the breast before you now examine. So if you've been saying you've been doing self-breast examination and you haven't done any of what I've just mentioned, then you've been doing it wrong. So you should actually go and have people teach you. So now when you do that, is it necessary for you, when you screen, go for the screenings? I believe you mean mammograms and ultrasound scans. Yes. When you do that, do you still need a monthly breast examination? Of course, yes, you need a monthly breast examination. Now, that's because it is for breast awareness. You hear us say early detection is key. I think it should be somewhere around here. Early detection is better. Prevention is better than care. So early detection is, it's better because you have to know what your breasts feel like normally. If you do not know what they feel like, you wouldn't know when something is wrong. And the key to survival, and you having a lot of, treatment options, is for you to report early enough. So monthly breast examination does that for you, in the sense that if there's something that changes between 1 month and the next month, it's probably something that can be taken care of early enough. So the screenings are very important. Once a year, if you're below 40, you should have an ultrasound scan, and if you're above 40, you should have a mammogram, once every year. It's very good. So having those screenings doesn't mean you shouldn't do a monthly self-breast examination. It's just you and something, it's like a habit. And the earlier you get used to it, the better. Generally, I've seen men more interested in the health of their wives. And I've also seen a lot of women report to the clinic, say, my husband felt it. So they didn't even feel the lump themselves. Probably they were just playing around with their husband. Every chance I get, I like to say men play a huge role. Why? Because men can act as reminders as well. As women, you have a lot of things going on. You have your family to care for. You have work. You have your children. So many times, a lot of things just, not like it's not important, not like you don't know. You just probably see people saying, this breast examination is good to do it to prevent a breast cancer, and you say, this thing I've not done it, I don't know how to do it, or I'll do it next month, or you do it and you don't even do it correctly. So men have that role to play. My husband reminds me to have a breast examination, and he has even learned how to do it. So sometimes jokingly, I teach him and all of that. But it plays a huge role as a spouse. To a certain extent, you owe her that responsibility. At least you just remind her, tell her, have you done this? Take her to do it, because you can ask her and she say, I will do it, I will. When people have to suffer from these diseases, that's not the first thing on your mind. Women have lost their lives
a lot.
And I was speaking with a lady who had a mastectomy, a while ago, and she said, I had to do it because if I die, I don't want another woman taking care of my children. So even while you check for others, you should, have that sense of responsibility that my health is also important. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I really understand
so
what you're saying.
We should learn to do these things, because if anything happens, that's it. So your life, actually, a woman's life, like I like to say, can hang in that balance of you just taking it for granted and not doing what you should be doing every month, and there's someone else who's taking her time to do this every month, and then also have the screening once a year. A woman's life can hang. I've seen a lot of women survive from this thing, have procedures done to remove lumps, and go back to living their lives. So the earlier, also the easier the treatment option. If you have a lump, you do not know on time, it keeps growing, and it spreads. It gets to the point where a lumpectomy is no longer what you need, because you didn't report on time and it has spread, and then you have to have a mastectomy to cut one or both breasts if it's spread, and then you have to go through radiotherapy, chemotherapy, which is not cheap, by the way.
No, it's not.
And it's not even easy to go through. And to think that a monthly self-breast examination and a yearly scan or mammogram can help you prevent this, so why not?
For, I think the average urban woman knows, she has heard something about mastectomy, she has heard about self-breast examination, but people in the rural area, they don't even know what to look out for. They probably have never heard of something like this. So what do you think that we can do to get this word across to them to save more lives over there?
You can't just come in and have a breast screening done or have something else done. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing, because that way it even helps you. We've had people come and say, oh really, I never knew this. You think that all my life I've never, give me your flyers, and they go out and they tell people. So education can never be too much. And you talked about concentrating on the urban areas. It's true, and I won't deny that. But you know, as times have passed, we've gone to rural areas, you know, we've gone to villages, we've gone to schools, government schools, to teach these women to also examine their breasts for them. And those, you know, if we find an abnormality, we tell them where to go, and then we follow them up, because some people, you tell them they know and they're like, oh, it's not my portion, and it ends there.
Exactly.
But it then begins to spread. So we make sure we follow up people to have them complete the procedure, you know, if it's a lumpectomy, all that. So education cannot be too much. Education is key. You know, we educate people. We also give them breast examination reminder cards that shows them, you know, the process I talked about earlier, and then they learn how to do it. I've lost 2 aunts to breast cancer, so I understand, you know, what it means, the role of education and prevention. You understand? So it's always very important. So rural areas, education is never too much. You go into the rural areas, communities as well. Now, going into communities, sometimes there are a lot of challenges. But first off would be reaching out to the heads, you know, of these communities, because
stakeholders.
Yes, stakeholders, you know, they believe them so much that if they tell them anything to do, they do. So many people have said, oh, I tried going, they didn't agree. Or go to the stakeholders, explain to them why this is important, and they then talk to their subject, and it's important. And as much as possible, if you have funds and you can organize outreaches, it's so important, and it would really help, you know, really help them. The cost of chemo treatment, and it's over the roof, and prevention is not only better but cheaper as well.
Stephanie runs a clinic here in Abuja where you can come for your breast examination, and she offers premium services, amazing customer service. I've read a lot of reviews on Instagram, and I'm hoping that you also have a nice time. Thank you so much.